Good evening, everybody. It's 6:30 p.m. Tonight is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. It's Wednesday, November 8th. We moved it because of yesterday's election. So if you would join us in the pledge, we'd appreciate it.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Randy.
Trustee LaRue?
Here.
Trustee Wiegand?
Here.
Trustee Everson?
Here.
Trustee Marks?
Present.
Treasurer Johnson?
Here.
Clerk retires here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard and Superintendent of Public Works Kirk Page. And I don't see any committee members here.
All right. Next up is public comment. If anybody would like to address the board, we do have a couple of privilege comments we'll do shortly. But if there's anything before that, sure. Come on up to the microphone.
My name is Scott Thorrington. I live at 2412 Huron Street. I've lived there since about 76. I'm here in regards to this Board of Light and Power plant down here. I understand it's going to be on your agenda. I don't know if this is the time to bring it up.
Well, we're going to talk about it probably in community linkage. So
So you want me to wait?
if you can wait,
Sure.
that would be awesome. I'll put your name on here.
So I put Scott as reserving time for community linkage.
Yep. We're on 7. Anybody else? Okay. Well, we won't have board member comment in response to public comment. So next is the consent agenda, which tonight consists of, read these first or we'll come back to Randy. How's that? The approval of regular minutes of...
Adjust this volume and start.
Okay, we got a little bit of technical difficulties Randy's been working on. So approval of regular meeting minutes of October 17th, budget work session minutes of October 25th, election committee minutes of October 17th, bills payable in the amount of $201,825.77. And we are going to read the budget amendment. That's number 2017-08. Receive committee reports and other reports, including the fire department officers and business meeting minutes of October 9th, accident fund workers' comp dividend, which was a couple $1,000s. That was nice. Minor Heritage Rec Authority draft agenda for October 25th, and the draft meeting minutes of September 25th. And we have a couple representatives here tonight to give us an update. That'll be shortly. Water production report of October. Presque Isle Power Plant ash landfill deposit report. Utility billing calendar for November. My report, financials and treasury report from September. Now, Randy, we've had a request from a board member to pull out the budget amendment. We don't need to do that. We can just read it. Randy wants to read that highlight, just so the public is aware.
Okay, the budget amendment presented to the board in the consent agenda, 2017-08, and the highlights of that budget amendment's in the packet, and it will be in the minutes. Authorization is requested to reallocate expenditures in the wastewater and water funds. Administrative department will increase due to the year-end vacation payouts, fees, phone postage, printing, and publishing. Tools and equipment will increase due to needed tool repairs. The meter interceptor, Chapel Ridge water reservoirs, and well pumping station departments will require additional funding for contracted services and electricity. The station contracted services and repair maintenance will require increase, and hydrant repair items are nearing the available budget through October. The offsets will come from contingency. which is $22,000.
Thanks, Randy. So I'll need a motion and
I move to accept
Second.
the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
we'll do a roll call because the budget amendment needs a roll call vote.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand?
Yes.
Trustee Everson?
Yes.
Trustee Marks?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Durant?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Next up is the approval of the regular agenda, unless there are any changes.
Move to accept the regular agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And we can go to Board Education and Privilege Comment, which tonight is going to be an update from the Iron Ore Heritage Trail Rec Authority. Tonight we've got Glenn Johnson, who's our Township Liaison, and Carol Fulcher's gracious her presence. And whatever you guys wanna add, you've got a lot going on in the minutes tonight that you supplied, so that's good. A lot of new business.
Well, thank you, Lynn. I'm Glenn Johnson, and it's good to see everybody. And for those of you that have never met Carol Fulcher, Carol's the reason the trail is as awesome as it is. She's our director, works tirelessly. Can't say enough about her and the job she's done, especially after that storm that we had a couple weeks ago. There was a lot of clearing in the trail and stuff that had to be done, and Carol spearheaded that. Just a few things that are going on with the trail. Trail upgrades. At Schwemmwood Park, there's been some landscaping done there. Bike racks, we're done, not yet, we're planning to do that, the bike racks. And then putting in bike fixing station. And those are real neat. I don't know if you've seen those. There's one in Marquette where it's got wrenches attached to it. A pump if you have a flat tire. They're real neat, and it's permanently attached there so somebody can't steal it. And the tools are attached by wires, you can't take those. So there'll be one of those installed there. They're quite pricey. And then a bench. We're installing those throughout the trail. We were hoping to do that last summer, but the bids came in a little too high, and we're looking at that. I don't know if you've been on the trail and noticed all the street crossing signs that we've put up. There's over 46 street crossings throughout the entire trail, which is 47 miles long, as you know. But those were installed. As I mentioned, new benches and mile markers are going to be installed. There's lots of trail maintenance that's involved. We've repaired 2 culverts. We've had some water, some flooding that we've had to fix. Lots of mowing and tree cleanup. And especially with this windstorm that we had 2 weeks ago, rocks were on the trail of Marquette Township. Big heavy rocks that moved right up on the trail. So lots of cleanup there. There's still some major events that are going on at the trail. The Iron Range Roll is a big one, and the Marquette Marathon. They use the trail, that's a qualifier for the Boston Marathon. Some other things, you may have noticed we've had the website for the Heritage Trail. That was redesigned over the past year. So when you get a minute, check out the Iron Ore Heritage Trail website. Carol's done a great job with that. Our map is out there. So we encourage you to go there. We also have a Facebook page. You go out and like the Heritage Trail Facebook page. There's a lot of information out there and pictures of what's going on. And Carol does a good job of keeping that updated with current pictures and such. Some of the projects we're looking forward to in 2018, a weather shelter and a a couple fishing piers along the trail that we're looking to put in for next year. Carol, I don't know if you want to elaborate a bit more on those.
Yeah, we put in for a trust fund grant, and for $390, so we hope that that will be successful. What it means is that where the ledgeway is and there's a pond there, we'll put a weather shelter there, and then we'll have steps down to the water so you can fish out of that pond. And there are fish in there. It's an outlet out of the Morgan Pond, the outlet from the Morgan Pond. And then also when you get to the Carp River Bridge in Negaunee, we also going to put an overlook there, so it's for bird viewing. Mostly it's though for people who are using the trail. We have 12 miles that we have no place to get out of weather. There's no private business, there's no public building, there's nothing. So once you're on that trail, you're stuck. And so if you're getting caught in wind, rain, snow, sleet, hail, there's no place to hide. So those are the two main reasons we're putting them there, but we're also going to put fishing as well. So we're going to put fishing piers along the Carp River so people can throw it in line right from the trail. So it's an offshoot off the trail. So that was our big thing for next year. It's a $218,000 project. So that was what people want. We're doing our recreation plan now, so we've done a survey monkey and some printed surveys. And the number one thing is pave more of the trail. So we're looking at paving through Marquette Township probably 2018. So we pave all the way up to the tower from 492. That would take care of most of the uphill part of the trail. Once you get to that top point, it's pretty flat and the trail is pretty solid. But we found that with the crushed aggregate on those hills, it hasn't done as well. So pavement will help a lot.
That's true, going uphill on pavement's much
Yeah,
easier.
much easier.
We put up mile marker or counters on the trail this summer, and just to get an idea of how many people are using the trail. And Carol just shared these numbers with me in July. There's a marker out in Marquette Township, one at our Pellet Pavilion, and then the other one in Negaunee. And over 10,000 people use the trail
July.
in July. So that's awesome. It's wonderful. I really think it's a crown jewel. It's really neat. One of the things we talked about as a board and we'd love to do is maybe next fall. There's a lot of planning that has to go towards this. But we would love to provide some motorized vehicles of some kind to take people out on the trail. Because taxpayers pay for this beautiful trail, and not everybody can use it. So I'd love to take my mother and mother-in-law out on a side-by-side on a day and show them how beautiful the trail is. So we're hoping to coordinate that for next fall.
We just need to get across the railroad track and the Canadian National Grade. That's the biggest sticking point for us right now is we can't get ORVs across that grade because they won't allow it. So that's why we can't open up a trail in Negaunee Township. But if we could get a one-day permit, that would allow us at least to get 1 day where we can get people on side-by-side. And bring people that can otherwise get on the trail. I think there's some done with buses out there, in the area.
Is there anything? Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I've got a couple. Go ahead, Pete.
What are the concerns about the e-bikes now? Before they weren't allowed, now you're allowed to have them, and any special
I don't
changes?
think there's a problem. I think, the Michigan Bike Business was for it, people for bikes were for it, Michigan Trails and Greenways. So the Class 1 e-bike that only allows you to go up to 20 miles an hour, and it's assisted pedaling. So basically, for our trail, it's gonna help a lot for people who are going from Marquette Township off the trail,
Got it.
because that's the hardest part. And so I think for people who don't feel comfortable or don't think they have the breath, this will help them, be able to use the trail. So I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Good.
Yeah, I think it will actually help people get more people on bikes and get them
I think
on
you
the
get
trail.
more of the older people if they want to do it, if they can balance it,
Yep.
or get a three-wheeler or something.
And actually, a lot of those e-bikes, you can't even tell that they have a motor see it. Some of them they look just like a regular kind of light. So it's not a gas engine, it's an electric motor that you put on when you need it. So, yeah, we think it's a good idea for Michigan to have got on that bandwagon and allowed them on rail trails.
Thank you.
Carol, you were talking about the survey. I saw that in your minutes too. How can we spread that out to all of our people? I haven't seen it, so I don't know
Well,
how.
we had some here, I printed them off, it's actually done now, but if you still want to get them in,
Okay.
I don't know, I think I came and took them from, but, I can open up SurveyMonkey again, or I can just get some back to the township, but, basically, we had the month of October to get information in, and we put them at all the township halls, and we put them at all the senior centers, and, just put it on our website and Facebook page, and we've gotten about 300 responses back. And like I said, the number one thing was pave more of the trail, more parking areas, as some places are hard to get on the trail, so it's not an easy way to get on. Restrooms and benches were the biggest wants of people on the trail.
Well, that's good if you got the response you wanted. That's fine. I just didn't know if it was an ongoing or not.
Well, it's for our recreation plan, and we'll have our recreation plan, a draft done after our meeting next week. And then I have 30 days for comment, and then in December at our board meeting, we'll have more comment. And then we hope to put it into state of Michigan in January. And we have to have that in by March if we want to apply for any grant funding. Which I don't know that we're going to do or not.
Is there anything you'd need from us then? Is that kind of a letter writing thing that we could help with?
I will be providing you the draft plan. Everybody that's a member of ours will get the draft plan. And you're allowed to provide any information you want back to us as far as your planning commission or your board. And we welcome all of that because we want to make sure we're doing what the people want us to do.
Okay, we can watch for that.
So not just what Glenn wants, but we're really trying to see. And a lot of us, my board is really good because they use the trail, so they know it. And they have a good handle on what people want, but we always want to make sure that the people's voices are heard so that we're making sure we're doing what they want.
That's why I wanted to have you guys on camera.
Okay.
So we do have quite a few people watch this on YouTube. And that's just one more way of communicating with our public
And
to
a
let them know.
Funny thing actually happened to me today. I had to take my car on the trail because I was going to get the trail concert at the Pilot Pavilion. And I had a guy coming the other way filming my car because he thought I was there illegally. So I think we trained him really well. And then I had to show him I had my maintenance vehicle sticker on there, so I had to show him I was maintenance. But so I think that's a good thing that people are taking ownership, that he was ready to turn me in, so that's a good thing.
Would he turn you into you?
Yeah.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. So, I cut down on time today, so I took my car out there and, yeah, lost it.
What about restrooms, Carol? What type? Is it similar to what they have in?
I don't want to get into too much of building big restrooms, but we don't have staff. It's just me. And at some point, we might have to bring on somebody, but I don't really think we want to get into big things where we have to continually maintain it. So we looked at something small. So, porta potties are just smaller. Something small like that, or maybe something a little nicer, but nothing too much. I mean, our trailheads are, right now we use other facilities that have mostly restrooms, but Schwemmwood Park is one of our trailheads and it doesn't have a restroom. So between Marquette Township and Negaunee, again, you have to get to the Michigan Iron Industry Museum to find a restroom. So there's some gaps that we need to do. One would be at 492-35. We own some land out there, so we'd like to put a parking lot and maybe a porta potty there. And maybe something in Ishpeming at Howard Oil because they ski in that area. And we don't have anything between there that, you can dress and,
The style that they're at the Lions Field on M28, you're down there, that one's
Very
installed
nice.
in one day.
Yeah.
It's pretty maintenance free, and it's just, I think
that's
that.
exactly what we were.
Now, I'm not saying you have to get that large, but you could probably get a little smaller ones too. And that guy was in and out in one day, and he had it all installed and
I should
everything.
actually get the cost of that, so we can figure that out.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, we'd been talking about the underpass, and you suggested that you would contribute 5,000 if we matched it. The board's talked about that a little bit. We have already said that we didn't want to contribute anything from the township residents, and I don't know how we feel about starting matches with anything, because then we might end up getting kind of cornered in a situation. I'm not real sure, but I did want to just address that with you. I'm not sure if that's something we're going to look at. I'm trying to set up a meeting with Gary Peters' office next week. His representative is going to be in town, and I'm going to try to get Randy and Jason and see if we can sit with her and look at some federal grants, because like I say, we don't really want to participate in this. But so if you guys do, I don't know if that's something you can do since it's not on the trail. I mean, it's kind of a connector anyway.
That was our problem with it, is, we have a board of other municipalities, of
Mhm.
course, so when we do something for one, it opens up for
Yep.
everybody else. So we kind of said, well, if we do it, because we think it's a great opportunity, that, yes, we want to make sure that residents in this community have a safe way to get to the trail. And you have a lot of residents on this side of the road, and businesses on this side of the road, but we just wanted to make sure that if we put some money in, it's matched, so that if somebody else comes and asks us the same thing in the future, we have that policy in place then.
So maybe we'll both back off of that. I don't know. We'll see. And Randy, do we have a link on our website to theirs or Facebook? I don't do Facebook, so I'm kind of ignorant of all that, but I wasn't sure if somebody
linked.
likes, we're covered with that.
We are.
I know a lot of our residents use it. Okay. Any other questions for our trailers? Great. Maybe you can, try to put us on your calendar for twice a year, or however often you think, if you're doing a whole lot of stuff, quarterly or whatever would be awesome, and I'll try to connect with you guys now that I have Glenn's information. That would be great, because you're just moving and shaking way too fast.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. The second thing we had on here was Glenn. I don't know if you're Glenn? No? Okay, because Glenn thought that he might come, and I don't know the gentleman, so I just thought I'd ask. He was going to visit with us. So that's it for board education. Then community linkage falls to what we added under Board of Light and Power update. John wants to give us a little information on what he's found out recently, and we really didn't finish talking about those forms that he had asked for. So I threw it on here. Go ahead, John.
2 weeks ago at our meeting, it was then that we began to get stirring in the community about the noise as generators were turned on by the Board of Power and Light. It was early in 2016 when the Board of Power and Light came to our meetings and told us what they were going to do and informed us about it. It was then that we asked to make sure, because of the height of the bluff and all of that, and frankly, my experience with generators was that there could be noise pollution. There could be other kinds of air pollution. So we asked them. We wrote a letter and provided it to them at the meeting and asked them to give us a formal answer so we could put it in our file, that what they were going to do so close to our border was not going to be detrimental to our citizens. They wrote to us and indicated that, in fact, there would be no pollution whatsoever. We then got a report that they had chosen to change the generators that they had ordered and ordered 3 more that they could obtained at a lower cost because they were an earlier model. When they did that, we again wrote another letter to them, asked that the Board of Power and Light make some assurance for our citizens that there would be no pollution. We started to get a stirring that there was, with one generator on a test trial, there was pollution, noise pollution. So the only way that I thought that you could put something on this with a record would be to ask our citizens if they felt that there was a pollution and they wanted to indicate it. The best place to indicate it would be to the township so that we would have a record of it. So we created a report for them to fill out. Actually, having those reports indicating the time of it and all of that is a good repository of information for use in the future. Whether we use it with the state or we use it just asking the Board of Power and Light to help us out and tell us what they can do to take that noise pollution away. That was asked for at the last meeting, and it was put off until tonight's meeting. But there's been 3 reports turned in by people who came to the township, picked up the forms, went and filled them out, and brought them back. That's an indication that there are people out there that are being disturbed. It's an indication that had we have mailed them, we may have had more. And so, once again, I'm simply asking that if we're going to create a single repository of this information for future use, and even to help the Board of Power and Light, we need to communicate this form and our information about how we're on top of it, because we've already asked them twice now to indicate there wouldn't be any pollution. I'm asking once again that somehow these forms be communicated to at least the people on that block, and perhaps to a further extent if the board thinks that would be useful.
Mr. Thornton, do you want to comment or give us some information, and then the board can talk about it?
In regards to what you're saying there, I didn't go to the meetings when they first came out, when they proposed this power plant. My wife did.
Name.
She specifically asked the man, we live on the bluff, would it affect us? No. They said, no, you will not hear this. Since then, that's not true. We get a constant, when they're running full blast out there, you can't sit under that. All you hear is a poof, 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 and a whining of a generator, or 3 generators, whatever you got there. You know. So, and at night, you can't sleep. You hear that all night long. Poof, 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 poof. That's all you hear. You can wear earplugs, it'll block out the other noise, that percussion noise that's coming through.
What's your address for the record, too? Say again, I'm sorry.
2412.
Okay, thanks.
We can't get away from that noise. It's a constant noise. They've been sympathetic to us in the fact that they do shut down at 10 o'clock at night or whatever. They did run for a period of time during the weekend and 24 hours. We've had he's the head engineer and operating person there. He came up, he recognized the noise. Tom Zorza, my neighbor here, was there. He was witness to that. He did acknowledge that there was noise. And at that time, I think there was only maybe 1 unit running. So I called him
I can't remember the day it was 80 degrees in October, but a real nice day. And we put it on our deck. I come to find out he had 3 units running there. Because I asked him, how many units did you have running? And I said, you had more than one. He said, yes. He said, we were running the test on 3. So, I don't know, it's almost, you almost get the feeling, you know, you're sacrificing a few for the many. You know, there's only a few of us on that street. You know, it's almost like you're being thrown to the wolves. What recourse do we have? Where do we stand? And another question that keeps popping in my mind is, does Marquette have the right to set their noise limits and build a power plant or to according to what they want to do? I mean, who's got the ultimate authority here? Is it Marquette? Is it the state, federal government? Who? Where do we stand on it? Like I say, you almost feel like you're thrown to the wolves. Either that or we gotta start getting attorneys, which we're both retired, we're here. Most of the people on that street are retired. We're not going to start getting an attorney and fighting the board of light power. So my question is, where do we stand? What do we do?
Well, this is kind of relatively new. We've done a little bit of research. Randy and I called over and talked to, I don't know what his position was.
Tom Carpenter.
Supervisor?
No, he's the new director.
Okay. And they are aware of it, and he's just going to look into it. It is louder than what they had anticipated, and they have had complaints. So the ultimate authority, I don't know. The BLP is a city, like a subsidiary. It's like the library. They're kind of under the auspices of the city, but they're not really controlled by them because they have separate boards. So yeah, it's their property. They can kind of do what they want. But as a public utility, I don't know what responsibility they have to neighborhoods. You know, I'm not sure. I guess that's a legal question, or it's not, you know, we're going to keep checking into it because it does affect more than one resident. But I don't have any real good answers right now. John, did you have any more information?
Yeah, I can tell you that we do have some avenue open to us, and that's at the state. At the state level, we can request that the state look into what we view as pollution. And we can also ask that the state review the questions that we asked 2 years ago in 2016. With the towers that come with the older model replacement generators, will they be sufficient in height that they will thrust up emissions to a level so as not to adversely impact our residents living on the bluff? That was a question on the letter that they answered and said no. So we've got something to work with, and we can begin to work with the state, and I would suggest we do that through our manager.
I went down on a real nice day, we could sit on our deck. I went down there to see that Mr. Carpenter. He wasn't in. I left a message for him to call me. He called me the following Monday. I think that day he spoke to Mr. Gerard the same day. He told me, I will circle back to you. We're going to look into this and see if we can re-engineer the building and the stacks. And that was, well, that's over 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard a thing. Did they meet? Are they doing anything?
Yeah.
Where do we stand? I mean, you know, we're out here in a limb right here waiting for somebody to do something and nothing's happening.
Well, we can keep looking into it. Randy, do you have anything to add? It's probably been 2 weeks since we talked to him, too.
Oh, at least, yeah, it's been 2 weeks. Well, it was the day that we spoke, and then I spoke with him after that. He said he was following up with the manufacturer of the engines as well as the folks who conducted the sound study to have them come back and make some recommendations, but since then I haven't heard anything. I think the only state agency that we would have any recourse through would be environmental quality, DEQ. I think they would be the monitoring entity on that. I'm not sure. We'd have to follow up on that and see. It's strange. They have, the city has the same relationship with the BLP that we have with the road commission. They are public bodies. They are creatures of another entity. In this case, the BLP is a creature of the city charter. In our case, the road commission, which is our road entity, is a creature of the county board. And they really exercise no control over them at all. They're just, that's how they're created, is through their individual charters. I did talk with Manager Angeli at the city to see if there was any recourse there, and he's aware of the issue because he's heard about it as well. But they have no authority to intercede with the BLP at this point. It's a separately elected body. So if the board wishes, we can get in touch with the Department of Environmental Quality and see if there's any standards that they could apply and do an investigation as to the impact on the residents.
The
I'm sure the BLP doesn't want to have to deal with the DEQ.
the city commission isn't absolutely clean. The city commission, the board recommended the proposed plan to the city commission and acquired their support for the plan from concept to fruition. That's what they got from the city commission. So they can't throw up their hands and say, we don't have anything to do with this. They had a lot to do with it at the beginning.
Yeah, I went to that meeting and spoke.
Yep.
Didn't do any good. Pete, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Scott, if you could get 3 or 4 people to go to the Board of Light and Power Board meeting and express your opinions, that would help too. Get some,
I know, we went there, we had kind of a runaround, pretty much.
I mean, that's all you can do is go out and say how you're feeling that and say we have a problem, and then.
Asked how many engines were running, and they wouldn't tell us. Can we go and look? No.
The point is, you have to begin to acquire a repository of information.
Right.
And that's what the forum was about. It wasn't necessarily anything that was derogatory at all. It was just to get the information in one place so that then as action can be taken, you'll use that. And that's why the form needs to be sent out. I would urge you to send out a copy of the letter that we got an answer to, that when they said there wouldn't be any pollution. I think that's a key. So it's just getting the information in one place here in the township is a beginning. I'm not sure how quickly any of this can operate, but I know it won't operate at all if you don't gather all the information in one place.
Right. But it is irritating. I was up there with Scott in his backyard, and it's kind of irritating. And I was only there for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. And you could hear it, that steady hum.
It rumbles through the house. It's a percussion noise. Mary had said an interesting thing, almost like something, a noise that throws your heart out of rhythm. Right. And you can't wear earplugs. I tried that.
Me too. I tried to.
I got 39 years with CCI. In the last 20 years, I couldn't pass the hearing test, but I can hear that.
Okay, yes, thanks, Scott, for coming, appreciate it. Okay, so we have a couple things that we would like an answer to tonight, hopefully, whether or not to send the form out or have it at least mailed to the people in maybe those 2-block area. And do we want to pursue it even farther to go to maybe the DEQ or, I don't know, the Public Utilities State? I don't know if that would be first. They do have to answer to them. We could do both. What's your pleasure?
I think it should be, well, go ahead, Dave.
I would think you would distribute that maybe 3 streets in from Wright with an actual mailing. I don't think it's pretty reasonable to say that any further in than that it's going to be, not as noticeable, but you need to make it available to everybody in the township, but I don't think we need to mail it to everybody in the township. And I would think that you need to gather some of that information for 30 days, and from that point, put a letter to the DEQ based on the supporting documents you'd have at that point. You need to gather some supporting documents for that.
Yeah, that's what John's been trying to stress. Sounds reasonable? Sure. If you have to yell. Yeah, we just want you on record, so either yell or use the microphone.
There also, what you're saying is exactly right, in the sense that the other street is Erickson. That's right on the corner of Huron and Erickson there. There are at least, there's 4 houses there that could be affected. You know, it's real close to my house, so I really feel something. So if you're just gonna go with Huron Street.
No.
3 blocks.
You gotta go back far.
3 blocks.
Probably, yeah, 3
At
blocks.
least
I said
three.
2, but, yeah, maybe 3. Well, and anything west, too, it isn't just on the.
You
on
gotta
the
go
east
take
side.
about the 7, 8 houses on this side, you gotta come on Norwood, all of those houses, and then go down Erickson and, almost, Center, not Center, is it Center Street? Yeah, Center Street. That'll take you about 3 blocks, and it takes you 2 blocks the other way.
Well, I would think if you're gonna do those parallel streets, you would do the entire parallel street from the city limit boundary all the way up to where it butts into Wright Street again.
I agree.
I would think you'd do the 3 entire stretches of streets and do a mailing to them. And I would think you need that. Is that available online?
No, we didn't
Well,
really do it.
This is something that I put together. So
Yeah.
But it can go on, it can go online.
You know, all you'd have to do is put a link on it so they can get to the letter in the form online for everybody else.
Sure.
And then
Yeah,
just
I see what you mean, yeah.
Put a drop dead date on it that we're gonna collect everything we've gathered in 30 days, and then we're gonna
I would, pardon me,
put our
We could even do
information
the end of the
together
year.
and
I would, pardon me for interrupting, but I wouldn't do a drop dead on it because.
well, drop dead's a bad choice of words, but
Oh, no, well, what I mean, what I'm saying is, if you think it's bad now, just think how bad it's going to be
When they started.
in the summer.
no, and I'm just suggesting that we allow ourselves an opportunity to collect that data for about 30 days before we put it all together and send it off to the DEQ. Because I think you need to have time to get all your ducks in a row before you send off a letter.
Let's get the information, I agree.
There's lots of things that affect this noise. One is the leaves. It was a lot less when we had lots of foliage there. And now that the leaves are down, it's an increase.
Well,
It's definitely an increase.
And unfortunately, until the 1st of June, you're not gonna have many leaves, so.
keep in mind what else is going on. There's another thing looming in the future. If you read the newspaper and you read what they're saying from the Board of Light and Power, they're talking about running these more when they drop out and drop off sirens. That's what they're gonna do when they don't have power online and they don't have sirens. You're gonna have 3 units running, and you're gonna have them running full speed, not half speed, full speed. So I think what we need to do is get the information together. I agree with Dave. Put it, begin to gather it, and let's see what's coming on it. But I think you need to keep it, the information of a form to get filled and the encouragement for citizens to do that. You need to do that because you get the time, you get the extent of the running, and you get all of that together on one form. And then you gather a bunch of forms like that. You've got something you can hand to someone at the state level and say, this is the problem we've got, what can you do to help us? I know that doesn't come easily from the state, but there are areas there, and the Board of Power and Light doesn't want to be looked at by state regulators, trust me. So, and I think it will be helpful to the Board of Power and Light to know at what time all of these people fill out a form and said it ran from this time to that time. It begins to give them a better picture of where it's going. And I'm convinced that the buff wasn't considered. It just wasn't considered because this, if you stand on the bluff and look at the stacks that they've got,
I'm looking at the top.
you're looking at the top of the stack, for goodness sake. When they did noise pollution tests, they were on a flat desert plain.
And at the same time is that they talked about, they can't run them all because they won't have the gas. Well, with the new line coming in, they will have gas, and the plan is to run all three, get out of the coal business down there and shut that down. That's it, they publicly said that.
I think we're on the trail of being able to put something together and put an argument together that has meaning.
Randy?
Yeah, if you go to our YouTube channel on the computer, that meeting that we had with the Board of Light and Power is still there, where they presented to us about these generators. And I think some of those questions were asked at that time. And we did get an answer from their engineer at that meeting, I believe. And the original thought for those generators were, those are peakers. They're not supposed to be running 24/7. They're just peakers. So the thought was, if the city, for instance, or the residents needed power, they couldn't get it from the grid, so they were going to fire those generators up, and it would be a short run. Now things have evolved that they're going to shut the Shira steam plant down and run those things 24/7. So a lot of things have changed in 2 years. So, that's where we're at today. And when it was presented to the township board 2 years ago, or maybe 3 now, things were presented a lot different at that time.
Do you
So-
have the date of the?
If you go to our YouTube channel, I believe, and search Board of Light and Power, that meeting should come up. And it's only about an hour. It's 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm glad we recorded that.
Yeah, the whole meetings.
The whole meeting is about 45 minutes, because it was right before a board meeting. It was right before a board meeting at like 6 o'clock. So we had like an hour or 50-minute meeting with them where they presented and we asked some questions. And at that time, I asked the question, where do we really need this? And they were they said, well, we can't get power at the grid. Well, now they can get all the power they want from the grid, so.
Everything's changed.
That was in April, April of 16.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then I'm wondering what you need to move this forward from this point. Do you need a motion, or do you just need a directive to the manager, or what do we need?
Well, motion's a record,
Yeah,
so.
motions are better.
I would move that we distribute the form along with the hard copy of the letter to all the residents on Huron, Norwood, and Center, I think are the first 3 streets.
Yeah.
And that we gather the information on December the 15th and put a letter to the DEQ.
I'll second that.
Motion and support. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Well, we'll start. See if that works.
No idea where it's going to end up.
But we'll start gathering data.
Yes, of
I'll
course.
look them both of them, I guess.
One more.
Hypothetical question, let's just say that we lose. Where do we stand?
Well, let's try to get this part first.
I know, we'll
Yeah.
cut our losses and run, I guess that's my
Yeah.
question.
No, we'll keep going until we get some kind of answer, at least. Somebody's got to be able to take responsibility for this. We'll see how far it goes. Give
Call
us
Sarah.
a couple months. Yeah, call Sarah. Randy?
Yeah, let me correct that. The first meeting we had with them was a special work session on January 5th of 2016. That's
Okay.
when they made the initial presentation.
And I know that meeting is still online, so if any of the residents would like to watch that, it's still online, so.
Okay, let's start the process and see where that goes. We'll try to do some kind of an update in the next few meetings.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Been torturing us.
I'm sure. All right, policy discussion. We have 3 things we need to cover tonight. We need to set some meeting dates for work sessions.
Shoot, I didn't bring my calendar, that's what.
Calendar?
My calendar.
Oh.
So I know what I wrote. You go grab my calendar.
All right, Randy, how many do you think we're going to need? Does anybody have an idea? We want to spend some time with, there's a couple of things I want to go back to on the general fund. It's not going to take long, but a couple of things. We do have numbers on temporary or preliminary numbers on health insurance and almost numbers on the wage increase. Randy's only got $9,000 to deal with at the end of the budget to accommodate that. I don't know that, oh, good.
One more that I have to bring to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know that any of those numbers are ready to be released yet. We're going to try to set up, what are we called, Pete? The negotiating committee. We're going to try to set that up so that we can review what we've had our first request for information from the bargaining unit. So we can probably have some kind of report for you next time. But budget-wise, of course, the biggest conversation is going to be Public Works, because we've had too many questions and not enough answers right now. And maybe Kirk's got a lot of them tonight, I'm not sure. So, you want to try to set up
This is my
a
suggestion.
meeting every week?
Schedule the meetings, as many you think you need, we can always cancel them, but we can't schedule them, so.
So if we did one for every week for the next 3 weeks to have in place, how does that sound?
Well, excuse me if I'm wrong, we have to have a consensus by the end of November, right?
We want to try to have it, yes, so that we can get it taken care of by
And the
December
only place we can have a consensus is out of a meeting, correct?
Well, you can schedule a special meeting, and we can
Which
actually,
has been done in the past.
We don't have to limit ourselves
I'm
to the
just-
next board meeting.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, the only criteria that we have is that we have to have the public hearing by December 15th, and it has to be advertised by December 1st to meet the criteria. That's my deadline statutorily. So regardless of whether you have a consensus budget or not, you have to have a public hearing on the budget at that time,
Nice
as
if
it
it's
sits.
So, next
Always be
week,
amended.
what's going to work next week? We need probably 2 hours. If we have Kirk during the day, that's the best time, unless you feel like you have to have it at night. What's not going to work?
Where are we?
10th works for me, it's Friday.
Pardon me?
Friday works for me.
17th?
17th?
No, the 10th.
not for
Friday.
me, so you'll be without me, but that's fine.
No Fridays work for you?
Not for
Well,
me
What
either.
about Thursdays?
Thursdays would work.
Thursday, if we want to come back this week? Yeah, Thursday's all right for me.
During the day, I'm available for just about anything.
Thursday won't work tomorrow because we're kind of exceeding, and unless it's at 7 o'clock, because we've exceeded that posting time.
Posting
Oh,
notice.
sure.
It's 18 hours. right?
Yeah, it's Wednesday. I
Yeah,
thought it was
so
still
it'd be-
Tuesday.
It would be tough.
Yeah, you're right on the edge.
We're right
Could
on.
do Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could do Friday. Friday's wide open.
Who can or cannot meet Friday?
Friday the,
10th.
10th, this
I
Friday,
can make it.
day after tomorrow.
Randy got a problem.
We talking?
I won't be here
During
Friday.
the day or?
I will not either.
Whatever.
All day Friday is no good for me.
You got two that won't be here.
Well, how about,
We go next week then? I'd
Next-
rather have
well,
everybody
well,
here. We're talking
Well,
utilities.
you meet with five. I mean, you've got two board members that can't make Friday.
Yeah, but I hate
Guys-
to when you're talking utilities.
But the thing is not everyone's gonna make every session, and
That's my
it's
point.
still gonna be recorded, possibly, so. we can
what about
watch.
next Tuesday? Or Monday or Tuesday, or
Those work for
Wednesday?
me.
Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday?
Tuesday, we're here
Wednesday,
for.
Thursday, Friday, any
Tuesday
of
noon, we're
those.
here for the Business
16.
Association.
I got open from the 15th on. I'm just committed up till that point.
All day? Okay,
I'll be out of town.
okay. So Wednesday,
Holiday,
15th,
yeah, holiday,
does that work?
deer season,
Oh, yeah.
for some of them.
I don't hunt.
Monday and Tuesday,
Monday evening, we have a DDA meeting.
at
Monday.
noon, we got a Township Business Association meeting.
That's on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, so we could go from 1 to whatever, or 2 to
Six.
4.
14th?
16th, 17th, and 18th is open here and here.
Yeah, I'm fine with those two.
I'm fine with those unless they have to be after 3 o'clock, but.
You're getting a consensus of
So, like,
16, 17,
3 to
and
5 on 16th, Thursday?
What time?
3 to 5?
For me.
Works for
work?
me.
And then Kirk's here. Are you here
16th,
next Thursday?
3 to 5?
This week?
5.
Okay.
The 16th, Lynn?
Yep,
2 to
Thursday the
5?
16th, 3 to 5.
Next
Okay.
week?
Let's try the next week. We got a meeting 21st. You want to come in early on that day?
We're not the 17th?
What's
Yeah.
wrong with the 17th?
Oh, yeah, if you want to do 2 days in a row.
Sure.
That's
I-
fine.
Get her
I don't have
done.
any problem
Get
with
her done.
getting it done early.
That's fine.
I don't have, unless it's after 3, I'll be fine. I'll probably be here at 3:15, but that's
Same thing,
fine.
3 to 5.
3 to 5,
3 to 5 on the 17th?
perfect.
You got 4.
I will be just 15 minutes later, so, but other than that, I'll be good.
Okay.
At the same time.
Next week after that? You want to do 2 more, just for fun?
Well, you're getting a Thanksgiving Day there, too.
Oh, yeah, 23rd,
23rd is Thanksgiving, yeah.
About Monday.
Monday,
20th.
Tuesday, or Wednesday?
That's fine.
Monday
3 to
after 3 again?
3 to 5?
3 to 5,
On Monday,
20th?
20th?
Thursday?
Thanksgiving?
Oh, that's all right. We're just-
Unless, if you're fixing, I'll be, Pete.
Cooking, yeah. You want to do the 22nd?
Are we doing 21st?
Board.
The 20th,
If you want to
We got
take.
20th, but
yeah. The 21st, no, we just got rec, and then we
It's our
got the
regular
board.
meeting.
you want to do it as part of the board meeting on the 21st?
We could do that, if you make it earlier. And then,
Well, I don't, your meeting's before that.
that's all right. We can go before that, then.
We could do the 3 o'clock one there again, too, and
3 to, what time do you
21st.
meet?
On the
5:30.
21st,
So 3
3
to
to
5
5?
on the
Yep.
21st?
We have a board meeting that evening, so I guess we could see where we're at and schedule additional ones
Perfect.
beyond that, so.
Perfect.
And if we have to, we could do a Friday. It's a clean them up or something, you know.
Yeah. All right, so Thursday and Friday, the 16th and 17th from 3 to 5. And then Monday and Tuesday from 3 to 5, that's the 20th and 21st. Sound good? And then we can decide on the 21st meeting.
doesn't sound good, but it sounds doable.
wrap it up.
Well, and like Randy says, you know, we may not even need those that week,
Yeah.
the third week.
It's always schedule.
Okay, that sounds good.
So, make a motion that we schedule budget work sessions, November 16th, 17th, so that's the 16th a Thursday, 17th a Friday, Monday the 20th, and Tuesday the 21st from 3 to 5 p.m.
And that would leave, outside of holidays, that would leave you the 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th as backups before it would have to be placed December 1st to run the ad.
But the 28th is not available for anyone,
28th of what?
November.
Tree lighting?
Tree lighting.
Yeah, but we could meet earlier.
Yeah, before that, yeah. Not too early because we've got a lot of work to do.
Well,
So that's a motion
We
to
have a
schedule
motion
that.
and-
Second?
Second, okay. Dan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right. Consider water asset management level of service. We do have a request from Superintendent Page in the packet. I guess I could use a little explanation because I'm not real sure what you're asking for, if we're already at those specific level of criteria, other than
what do we,
water loss, it looks like, and the revenue,
Kirk stuff.
5%. So if you can explain kind of what you're asking for? Unless I'm just not understanding it.
Well, we're being mandated to have a water asset management plan in place by the first of the year. And level of service is just part of the requirement. Something that's measurable. It has to, fit the town for us. And it doesn't have to necessarily be something that we're already achieving. I mean, some of these are definitely kind of on the fringe, for example, the pressure requirement. That would actually, we've got one small pocket, a few, maybe 2 or 3 blocks, where we're probably exceeding that right now. And in order to meet that, get it down to 90 PSI under normal conditions. I'm sure you're aware that because of all the type changes, we got a bunch of different services to keep a happy medium, not too low, not too high. So that would actually entail to meet that particular one. Another project, which was going to be part of this year's plan project that we got approved, but that we didn't pursue. We were basically chained to the boundaries of one of the pressure districts by removing a PRV that exists now. So we have people complaining about low pressure and relocating 2 additional units further downstream. So the one being removed to help people with low pressure. And actually, the low pressure that they're complaining about is definitely above the 30 PSI. So you're not, having trouble there. But to do that, we could also perhaps reduce it within this 90 PSI. So we got one even with the PRVs, in order to if we reduce the PRVs down more, then we would go too low. So we're probably at times, depending on tank levels, that's basically the controlling factor of pressure. We might be up to 100 PSI.
So
That's just an example.
Are these your criteria then, or are they part of the asset management program, or the mandate, or?
Well, they're from a variety of sources. The part of them came from actually the DEQ. They've been promoting this and providing training. In fact, the plan is basically going into a DEQ developed asset management workbook. So it's a component, and they've got examples of types. Also, the Rural Waterworks Association also had some recommendations. And there was actually an engineering firm that was peddling, that template. And I didn't purchase it, it was like $5,000. But they had some examples too. And just some that, again, it's required, it's something that has to be, it's a central part of the SME. In other words, it's, you're trying to, first of all, replace the state, good assessment of the state of the system, and there are lots of components of the system, and then the remaining life, and what it's gonna cost, and, and then, things like responding to complaints, that's just kind of normal doing business type stuff. Certification of service workers, that's, people are part of your assets. I mean, there is no asset management without people, to do it. So, and, the water loss, that's, that's just the normal thing. So,
Where are the qualifications coming from, though? Where's the, it looks like the PSI is established between 35 and 90, apparently. That's a real thing. It's not something you'd like to see or hope to see. It's like
No, that's
mandated,
actually a
or
real,
that's a real number.
The specific numbers
Okay.
are from our system, so it's we're not totally unique. City of Marquette's very similar. We're going to have a wide range. Some places it's not. So in other words, the optimum range is, I believe, something like 40 to 80.
Okay. So there's a real number there. I'm just wondering how many of these we have to do, or who's saying that we have to do them, or this what you're recommending,
That's
or?
what I'm recommending. We have to have some kind of level of service. So what I'm suggesting is, I'm asking you, as with all of your water customers, you're also representing, the public. What are your expectations?
Okay.
You're really talking about establishing goals and objectives for the asset management program, is what they're talking about. And the goals and objectives can be modified by the board at really any time.
Okay, that's why I was trying to figure out is if,
Right, and the whole program itself
Qualify
is
this.
going to be, I got to meet the deadline, but it's not going to be like a complete plan. I mean, things are going to change, as we progress. For example, the staff just completed the inventory just 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I deleted. I didn't include. It's pretty extensive, but I did not include like service lines because that would take more time, and I got to get this work done. So, and then Isaac has been basically inputting that information. He's doing a couple of things. He's creating mapping that's going to be used with another component that's not necessarily part of this plan, but it's part of our general asset management. The mapping, and that took some time because, all of our people, including Isaac, including me, we just can't do this 24/7. Other things are happening every day. So,
okay, so
this is, all I'm saying is, it's required, you gotta have a level of service, and it has to be reasonable, and it can even be unreasonable, but, that gives, say we wanna, respond to complaints within, 2 hours or something like that. We can do something. But everything has, the reason it's essential for the plan is because everything that we put in here, there's gonna be an element of cost. It's gonna cost to do that. So, when it comes down to the end, basically the end result of the plan is, or I shouldn't say one of the end results, the last essential component would be capital improvement plan, which we have already. But that's going to be adjusted based on, actually the replacement component is going to be probably adjust it because, you know, I'm just using the standard auditors, you know, whatever the auditors give me, that's basically what our replacement schedule is. Okay. But obviously, you know, we've had this discussion already related to this year's project. The more we examine the system and the more data we compile, we'll be able to change those life, you know, a lot of cases it's kind of reasonable. But there's a lot of discussion about, for example, the life of the pipe. Maybe people could extend it, you know, just based on experience, you know, conditions. So that, and what that's going to do is reduce that particular component of your assets, perhaps. But then there's also costs associated with maintenance-wise to increase the life of something as well. Yeah, so my point being, those things are going to be adjusted, and that component might actually probably ultimately be reduced. I'm not going to be able to reduce it by the end of the year, I'll tell you that right now. But
So you'd like us to approve all of these tonight?
right,
That's
it's
what you're
something that,
asking?
you know, I want you to either approve or say, no, we don't want to do that, or so.
Okay. I don't know about the level of certification. I'm assuming that's either basic or assumed, or
basically the-
That's just a standard.
that's probably real.
That's appropriate for our system.
Okay.
I think they're all within line of what we should be doing.
So Kirk, the question I have is by approving this doesn't commit us to anything other than what the level of service we'd like to see, correct?
Right, no, so this will go into the plan as, okay, this is our current level of service.
Yeah, this is what we're,
Striving to achieve.
yeah, this is, or basically, this is what we have already.
Okay.
Right.
So this is what you have to put into the
And, you know,
plan.
earlier, you know, I mentioned all the advantages of doing it, you know, because it helps, you know, the staff, it helps the management. You know, if we feel that we're not meeting some of these levels, you know, we can shift resources, you know, kind of monitor it.
And is this
And-
checked every year then, or monthly, or
Sorry?
how often would this all be checked? Monthly or yearly?
Yes,
Yeah,
at least annually. I
okay.
mean, we're gonna be continually gathering data and making sense. It's primarily, the big driver is gonna be, the deeper we get into it, we're gonna identify some deficiencies, some place where we could be doing better, you know. And in that case, we might wanna set the bar a little bit higher in some areas.
And I think this level of service is, I think, I was going to ask you the other day, but we have some areas in the township that they have very low water pressure, and this will be his goal, and how to achieve that goal, what we have to do to make sure we can reach that goal in all areas of the township. Because some area in the township, they can't run water inside the house and they're outdoor sprinkler, and, you know, so I'd be in favor, I'd make a motion if everyone's done asking questions.
Dave?
I guess I have a couple problems with some of the numbers, and one is the water loss, 15%. We just went through 3 months of haggling back and forth, and we were getting some numbers as high as 28%. The other one I have a problem with is the life of the pipe. I mean, are we still using the 50 years?
As of today, yes. That's what I'm saying. That part is gonna change as we get into the plan, the implementation.
If I understand all of these numbers, they are just plugged into the asset management program, and that's what drives the recommendations for what needs maintenance and what doesn't need maintenance.
Right.
And then it'll get tweaked, like you said,
Right.
over the course
The part
of...
that hasn't been done yet, though, Dave, is the assessment of everything.
What concerns me is that we are implementing a policy that is then going to drive capital improvement projects that we otherwise wouldn't have been doing. If we set this with these numbers this low, then are we strapped with these numbers this low? 15%, I mean, we don't have any idea from what I can see of what our water loss is right now. And what if it really is 28%? It sounds like we just developed a policy that's gonna cost a few $1 million to.
Well, no, that's another reason that we're doing this. Like I said, every level of service, all these components, the cost associated. So, yes, you might say, it costs too much money. So then we can't do it.
Well, the problem I have, the initial problem I have was when you're calling it a policy, because the policy says that that's a goal that you need to meet. And no offense, Kurt, I can see you back up here in a year saying that in order to comply with this policy, we need to do these capital improvement programs. We need to make sure that this is not a policy that has us locked into anything.
No, that's.
Because the very initial stage of your asset management program, and when you get it developed, there's gonna be all kinds of things you need to tweak on it. There's just no
Right.
doubt about it.
Yeah. And each time though, I'll be coming back to you with the same question, okay? This is the need that we've identified, the problem. And I'm not talking about necessarily new stuff, I'm talking about problems with the existing, what we got right now. Okay?
Yeah, and I guess what,
Because another thing that has yet to be done is to, when all the assessments are done, you know, they're gonna be ranked, and then, you know, what's the lifespan, where are we in that lifespan? What's the cost factor remaining? And then also another part is, what's the likelihood of failure? Okay, and then how critical is it? So if we have a hydrant, for example, on a dead end block with, you know, that only serves, you know, one or two houses perhaps, it won't be as critical, for example, as a hydrant, you know, by a school.
well, one of the critical, I mean, all these pieces of information are fairly significant when you're asking the program to tell you what you should look at for repair for the next year. Because you should be looking at the asset management program to tell you where you should be spending your dollars. And the thing that concerns me is that we haven't even determined what the life expectancy of the pipe is. And there's a big variation there someplace between 50 and 110 years. And you're just entering the 50-year number into the asset management program? Because I would
Well,
think.
right now, because it has to be, you know, it's gonna take time.
What's the plan to research that so we got some better numbers to put in there?
Well, it'll be as soon as I can, but, you know, that's only one.
No, I'm asking what the plan is to do that. I mean, we're not just gonna go out and pull numbers out of the air. We have to do some kind of research to determine what those numbers actually are.
Well, right, I mean, there's information out there, and plus, we have experience. It's a fairly new system, and I can tell you right now, I'm pretty sure that the life of a valve in a hydrant is not, you know, 100 years. It might be 50 years, so probably is that number. But right now, the auditors have, for example, 50 years for the pipes, and that's what I said was most likely, as I get more into this, it's going to probably be increased. That's my anticipation.
I can see that you need to put something in. It makes sense.
Yeah.
My argument too would be the water loss. When I saw those percentages or non-revenue, I don't know how you can pick that number. Randy had his hand up. Let's see what he wants to say.
Actually, it's a question for Kirk. What's your time frame for having a draft asset management plan completed? I know this is a piece of it, but what's your? Pardon me?
The end of the year.
The end of this year?
Yes.
So would it be appropriate for the board to adopt this as a preliminary statement to be reviewed January 1st?
Because you just need something in, right?
Yeah.
So that you can
To get
have
it going.
the system function.
And that provides the opportunity then to do the assessments like Dave's talking about and to bring it back to the board on a scheduled time frame to make those adjustments to the plan.
That's part of probably putting our calendar together for next year too. Until we have the budget done, Susan can't help me with the
Right.
calendar for our plan of, whatever it's called, plan of work. So that makes sense. John, I think you were next.
I think what was being asked for was as much assurance as is available and possible, so that these are not perceived problems. That's where I think we're headed.
I looked at it as just the same as we did with the road committee, road project. We wanted to fix the roads. Well, we started ahead of time in 2011, we talked about it. And then finally, that was our goal. And this is what I'm looking at here. That's the way I took at this thing, Everybody deserves good pressure for their house if they're living in the township. Well, that's the goal. What do we have to do it? And then he'll have to come back and give us some kind of figures to do that. We did the road project. We didn't complete what we wanted to do, so we stopped. So you can stop any time. It's going to be fluid. But at least it's some kind of a goal for him to plug in to come back to us.
So some of this I see changing
Oh, I do too.
right off the bat, but some of it'll be static.
And there'll be a lot more added to it, like Dave was saying, in order to have the asset management plan, the governing body is gonna have to come to a decision of what it is. If a pipe life cycle is somewhere between 50 and 110 years, what are you gonna peg it at to use for the asset management schedule to kick you forward in terms of when you look at replacing that pipe? And I think that's what Dave was trying to say, is that, if you have a realistic number in there, let's say you pick 75 or 80 years, that, Kirk knows when the pipes were put in the ground, so he plugs 80 years in for the life cycle of that piece of pipe. It was installed on such and such a date in 76 or 75 or whatever it was when your first pipes were put in. This is how far down the road we are, so we can anticipate in X number of years, we have to start looking at that pipe for a potential replacement.
You've got an algorithm
I
in
think that's
place.
what Dave was asking.
Go
You
ahead,
can't
Dave.
just plug in 50 years.
Well, and actually what I'm more interested in, and you can put any number in the asset management program that you want, and you're gonna get whatever you want based on the number you put in. It's
Right.
a matter of garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't tweak it and fix it up, you can't
Right,
rely on
and
what's
this
there
is,
anyway. But
again-
the problem I have is that this is due by the end of this year, which is a month and a half away. And now we're gonna go back and we're gonna reset life expectancy of the pipe. Have we come up with any way that we're gonna set life expectancy of the pipe? I mean, there's
that's-
things out there that you can do,
Right.
but we can't just plug a new number in there if you don't have any.
And I'm not gonna plug it.
Empirical
And
data.
the problem I have with it is we always seem to end up with the best guess scenario as opposed to we use this number because we ran these tests and it was based on this data, and that's how we came up with the number we're gonna put in there. The same as the hydrants and valves. I mean, yeah, we've replaced enough of them. We should be able to go back and look at the past experience we've had, and based on that past experience only, we should be able to forecast the life expectancy of the valves.
So I guess what I would expect
well,
Kirk to
yeah.
do,
And the other thing is, we have videoed, we've videoed some of these pipes from the inside, so we have an idea from
No, we
that.
have not videoed water pipes. This is a water accident.
So, I thought the water pipes had been videoed as well,
No,
just the wastewater.
no, that's totally different.
Yeah, all right.
And I would think another way to get life expectancy out of those pipes, and that's a big deal because was $4.5 million for a very small portion of our infrastructure.
That wasn't, asset
Just-
management was not the reason we were doing that project.
I know that.
no.
I know we
But the
turned
cost.
into that discussion, and it's a worthwhile discussion.
We just pulled some water mains out of Ontario Street that we probably still have some pieces of it laying around here. I would think if we sent a piece of that out, we could find out what the life expectancy of that pipe actually was.
So what I would kind of think Kirk would have to do, once this is established, is come up with his plan of attack for the next year.
That's what I'm asking
And
for.
of these, yeah, I'm sure he hasn't done that yet. He's spending all of his
What's our
time.
plan to update the data that we need to get in there? Life expectancy of valves and and pipes and everything else, we need to have a plan, not just tweak the numbers as we see fit. We need to have a plan on how we're going to arrive at these numbers.
And justification for
That's the
them.
part that bothers me, because we always end up going down this trail, and then we don't have any actual justification for why we did what we did. We just did it.
I would think that contacting the manufacturers of the pipe would be able to give you a reasonable look at what the expectation of that pipe is. I mean, they're the ones that are responsible for it. I think there are a couple of different ways that you could assess or come to an assessment of what is a realistic view of the piping that we're using. I mean,
Well,
it's
we had an
investigation.
initial thing from ductile iron was 110 years.
Yeah.
And
up
then
to-
they give you a couple tests that you can run, and the most inexpensive test was that alkalinity corrosivity study.
Right.
That you could do in your infrastructure, and that would lessen that 110 years based on whatever the corrosivity of the pipes were. I mean, those are all tests that I wouldn't think we need to hire an engineering firm to go out and do. That's driving a couple probes in the ground and hooking a wire between them. Those would be the things I would think we would be working on over the next year to make sure that we've got good numbers in that asset management program. I guess what I don't want to see happen is we put these numbers in here, and next year budget session, we're coming back with a replacement program based on these numbers, because I don't have any faith at all in these numbers, especially the number of the 15% water loss. We have no idea how close to true that is.
Right. So that's what I started to say was, if he comes up with a plan of attack, not all of these are going to have to be challenged or tweaked. If we want to make water system complaints in 2 days or 15 hours, we can decide that's easy enough. But the rest of these that do have something to quantify them, I would think he'd have the whole year to figure out, okay, this is the most important one we need to look at. I'll work on this the first 3 months, and then the second one ends up being the next 3 months or whatever. He's going to have some kind of a plan of attack.
When he comes to that, you'll say 15%, if he can't achieve that, and we're going to settle for 28 if it's going to cost us too much money to correct it, you're going to live
So, I
with
mean, we'll just
28% loss.
He'll have to pick each one and say,
As I mentioned before, water audit has to be done, okay? Using 2017 data, it's just not valid data, because you're measuring the water that was produced, and then the Cox District, which is the water we get from the city, it's basically been recycling. So the numbers are real, okay? I know how much we've sold, and we started trying to track water that's used legally, by public works, by the fire department. There's still some others, like private fire line testing, that sort of thing. And then your real loss, so that's all called apparent loss. So it's the real loss, and that's a 15%, which is basically leaks. Okay. So once I've got everything else sorted out, throwing out 2017, because the numbers are not valid, and assuming that the city at some point will stop recycling water, so.
and we talked about putting meters on those things, like the fire department, and actually tracking what water they're using.
Well, it's not reasonable to put, they do training, and they fight fires.
I think what Lynn was referring to,
No, I mean, they're,
the fire lines,
Yeah.
the fire suppression system
the
lines.
waste,
And that's-
yeah, the waste of
in fact,
water.
Had a conversation with Myers today. They're gonna be the first one.
And that's what, we were trying to catch up on that water loss
But
because,
even if, without the metering, for that kind of use, there are still some standard uses, or standard numbers to use that are common throughout the industry, so. And then with water audit too, is, there's a certification process, or validation, I should say, of your data that you're using. So, I'll have different numbers, some more valid numbers. Plus another point is even if I had those precise numbers, and I also mentioned a while back for water, in terms of lifespan of the pipe, there are some technologies out there
that are pretty accurate, but they're pretty costly. So, you have to weigh that. But in terms of the actual lost water, water that you're losing through leakage, is actually, that's water that you cannot sell. So all the water that Public Works, Fire Department, if people are stealing water, by tampering with their meter or whatever, that's full cost water. But water that's coming out of the ground, through leaks, really the only cost of that water is what it actually costs us, for chemicals, pumping. So
Is there industry
it's
average?
not the same cost per gallon that you would pay as a consumer. That's what
Is there an industry average? Like the municipal, like Randy works for water thing, what do they plan? What does Ishmean, what numbers are they
Everybody's
getting?
different. I know cities had that issue for a long time, theirs is pretty high, and they just can't get it done.
Pagani's worse.
Right, so it's,
What did you want to share, Randy?
and we've got Forsyth Township, for example. They just had a big project, I think they're installing meters for the first time. So, their standards and then their UP standards.
I would like to move this as a preliminary level of service forward. Because it's going to change anyway. It's preliminary right now. So because it's going to change once Kirk gets the data, he's going to have other numbers to put in there. So as of now, like a master plan, you have to put something in to meet your goal. And right now, this is his best guess, I would think, at the time. And it's preliminary. And I'd make a motion to approve it as preliminary.
You want to use the January date that Randy suggested?
Well, it has to be done by the end of the year. So as preliminary as of to January 1, then as it is going to change, so.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Ernie?
I'm sitting here listening. Biggest thing on goals and policies, when you start setting those, it seems like that's where you're going to go. And that's the direction you want to go, and that, all the time. And I'm concerned with setting policies and goals without having a lot of data behind it. Take level of service, meeting all federal and state drinking water standards. Where do we stand now? What percentage are we at this point in time? What's it going to cost to get to the next level? Take the next one down, secondary standards, the same way. What's it going to cost us if we're not there? How long is it going to take to get there? That's why I don't like goals and policies without a lot of data behind each one of them and that. And I made a couple comments on service workers, all certified level 3. Do we need all level 3? Do we need 2s and 3s? What's it going to cost us to go all 3s? And why do we need to go 3s? Those are questions. Levels of security, what are you talking about? What's that going to cost and what's the time frame on that? Do we have anything now? Do we need an updated? And the question on water loss, 15%. How do you determine that? Where do you get the information? These are all background information you need to have on goals and policies before you move forward in that. Sure, it's fine to put in there, but if we do it, we better go forward with full understanding that it's there, but there's a lot of data that's going to come before us before we move forward on any of these things in that. Dave brought up a lot of questions that were raised in the past. These all have to be brought forward in that too, because there's a lot of costs out there that we don't have money for, and there's no way we're going to be able to get money for. So that's my feeling on it.
So we have to have, or he'd have to present some kind of a plan of attack on which of these are established goals, like federal and state drinking water standards. Those have to be met. Secondary standards related to aesthetics. Those have to be met. I don't know what the qualifications are for that, but if we have to meet them, those are two that he's probably not going to have to work on. If the disruptions in 24 hours, the PSI can be changed, the level of training, these are all things he's going to have to put in some kind of a calendar and say, I'm going to work on this and get you a real number on this by this date. I'm going to work on this and get it to you by this date. This can be part of our calendar of annual work too, saying that we're going to follow up with him quarterly. That's the part of the policy governance that we want to make sure we're being reported back to. So until he has something he can put in my mind, he can't move forward. So both Randy's suggestions of trying preliminary.
Well, and I can answer some of these questions because I'm in the water industry. We are meeting all federal standards now, or would be in violation. Aesthetics is, our water's good, so we're not violating that. The system pressure is some issues in some area of the township. It's topography, and there's some things that we have to do. We do take care of the water disruptions in 24 hours or less. We do investigate complaints 2 business days or before. If you don't have certified level 3 service workers, you're going to get fined by the DEQ a lot of money. We do safety training meetings, and we do have level of security, but the data we need is the water loss, which we probably don't have yet. The pipe data is what we need. And the capital, and that's the stuff we're going to need. All this other stuff we are doing now. So it's not like, and Treasurer Johnson's not a water person, so he doesn't understand some of these things. I do, so it's easier for me to look at this. But as a preliminary plan, I see it as fine right now. The other data that we're going to have to acquire, and Kirk's going to acquire that, and get the real numbers in there. It's preliminary right now.
Dave?
This is the frustrating part from my perspective, is that we would show up here with a policy to consider, and Clerk Retired just rattled off more supporting documents than all that stuff should have arrived with this policy. We need supporting information on these policies. You just answered off 5 of them where we already meet it. I mean, that's a short letter, and it's a short reference to a state statute to demonstrate that we meet that, and it doesn't have to be discussed. That's a supporting documentation that it frustrates me that we never seem to get. And we're always asking for it, and we're always told that it's out there and it's available, but it never seems to show up with what we're considering. And this policy right here should have showed up with a dozen pages of supporting documentation to explain where we're at with the items that we're looking at here, where we currently are, and if there's going to take anything to get to this level of service that's being proposed, is what's it going to take to get there? And if it's not going to take anything, then just say it's not going to take anything. We're already there. But that's the part that gets frustrating with all this.
Okay, so moving forward, in order to do that, I would say either Randy or I would need to when Kirk's going to put something in the packet, one of us needs to get a hold of him and find out, because I don't see this until I see the packet either, and that's usually not time enough to corral, or maybe it is, depends on what the item is. Because I know what the board's going to ask. Randy may know what the board's going to ask. One of us has to get together with him and say, okay, I need this backup documentation, I need this question answered, I need this percentage qualified, right?
Yes, but I would say that that's a job for the manager, as the superintendent works for the manager.
That's fine. That's why I said either one of us needs to get a hold of him. The only reason I said me is because, well, Randy knows the complexion of the board. He knows how everybody's going to question.
Well, and I would put it this way. When the manager comes out with a budget in the general category, and there's anything that changes in that budget, he gives you options, and he gives us a recommendation, and he substantiates why he wants the recommendations. We don't get that with this piece of paper. There's no options, and there's no substantiation as to why this is being presented the way it's presented. And that's where I have the issue. We're being asked to make a decision with no background information.
Okay. So, going forward, that's going to have to be considered between Kirk and Randy then. If you're going to put something in the packet to request other than, you know, a payment request that we already approved the project, which we don't really do anymore in here. We're gonna have to have that kind of level of detail or backup, and if you're not sure, ask me or ask one of us if somebody's, because this is pretty comprehensive. This isn't, you know, just something we can just approve.
By January, we have some answers to what we have right here.
Might, yeah.
Yeah, but we should never be afraid of training, you know, because every time you get trained people, you have a better quality of people, they feel better about themselves, and you get more production out of them. So you should always have, not afraid, we should always try to advance our service people.
All the staff. All right, so we have a motion and second on the floor. Any more discussion? Do you want to read it again, or is everybody good?
It's a preliminary, it's to accept the report as preliminary level of service as of January 1.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, future water projects is kind of the same discussion a little bit. We, Randy and I have spent some time talking about the water. And we had asked Kirk at the last meeting to come up with a no increase budget as an option to the increases we've got. And even reading through more of the budget again today and seeing the numbers for where we are, I can point you back to in the packet. Is that Randy's, or? Let me go back to the end. Where is that, Randy, that you tell us why you're justifying your departments? Is that before the financials?
Are you in the budget
Up there it is.
document?
Yeah, the highlights. If you look at the highlights, which is page 37, if you want that, right before
Budget
the
with me.
financials. Wastewater and water, it gives you an idea what's happening. Now, this is August's, well, this is September's, yeah, that's right.
You're talking about the material in the board
August
packet?
financials, yes.
Oh, okay.
Your page that you highlight the financial statements.
Lois does that, not Randy.
Oh, she does? Okay.
Lois does that.
Okay, I didn't know that. Debt service revenue is higher for September in wastewater than last year due to the increased rate. And he's got grinders, pumps bought and stuff. Water revenue is, debt service is higher, 42% higher because of the increased rate. Sales are above 2016. And I'm thinking, yeah, and we need to increase rates? We're adding 10 cents to the debt rate? This doesn't make sense. So I took last year's budget, or this year's budget, and I looked at last year's. And a couple of the board members said something about not even doing any capital improvements this year at all. Just taking that $167,000 that we were gonna set aside and just use it. And just not do anything, unless for some reason there's an emergency that we have to, then we have to account for it. But the more I looked at it, I thought, well, if we didn't do that, we could pay off some serious debt and save quite a few thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in interest and get ourselves back on track. We've got somewhere around 167, 170, if you look at the interest, 200,000 that we could save, and that'd be gross. That's not including the interest. But it's another option on how to fund the system. And especially in conjunction with the asset management, it would give us some time to figure out, get a better feel for what projects we have to do. I don't want another Vandenboom to happen. And we also need to build that fund back up. But even a couple years ago, we talked about changing the way the repair and improvement account was handled. Because right now, and this is something that former trustee Pompel brought up repeatedly, we put in $167,000 in this account every year for the same projects. Occasionally, some of those come off. And Dan's question was consistently, how much do we have saved up for project XYZ? Well, I can't tell you that because it's kind of just a melding pot for all of these different projects, and we're trying to save for them. It's not an efficient way of doing things. We either need to put a general ledger account number on each project, the Cox generator, or whatever grinder pumps, or if it was Vandenboom's project, we need to quantify those and say, okay, it's going to take 10 years to do this. We are going to put $10,000 a year away, but it's in this account, and we're leaving it there, and we're not touching it. And then we're having a contingency account for the emergencies. We've got to define this better. And I think if we pay down some debt, we can do 3 years' worth of debt reduction, totaling $207,000. It won't be that much because, again, you'd be saving a lot of that interest. But we've already got $57,000 of it budgeted, so we got another $53,000 we can use. I mean, it's just an alternative to how we manage this money for repairs so that we don't have to try to figure out where the money's coming from. Yes, Dave.
What I would like to see us do is to develop a budget for Public Works this year that freezes all of the rates that the residents are receiving, and puts a moratorium on all of the CIP projects for this year. And obviously, if you do those two things, you're going to come out with a budget that has a surplus. And that surplus should go someplace besides replacement improvement. I don't know if the proper spot is contingency or whatever, but the board should make a determination, because we're under a crunch right now. I mean, we don't have time to do this and get a consensus budget out by the end of the month, and that's a whole separate annoying point, but so be it. If we could just put any surplus that is going to be realized into a contingency fund, and the board can make a determination as to where that's going to go. And I'm in favor with the supervisor of paying off some debt service fees to allow us to collect more money into a contingency fund at a greater rate because we're not paying interest. It just makes sense, and it doesn't mean that we're putting anything off on the capital improvements program, because we stepped 2 projects up that weren't on the radar. We did South Vandenboom and we did Ontario Street that were way more money than we had planned on spending this early in the game. So if we just put a moratorium on the capital improvement programs that we currently have on the books and let us catch our breath and see where our money's going and quit raising the rates to just plod along as normal. So I don't think we can plod along as normal because we stepped 2 projects in there that we didn't plan on putting in there. I would think we would be better off to do that for this year's budget, and after the budget season is over, have the board and the manager make some recommendations as to what debt service fees could be, what we could do with that contingency money that we forecast on having. And I just think that would be, from a resident's perspective, it would be a light at the end of the tunnel to say that we paid off 2 debt service accounts early.
We can do 4.
And we're saving, yeah, I have no doubt that we can do 4. And we're saving this much money. And then we get to decide, then we have the luxury of deciding, do you want to reduce rates, or do you want to start putting money away for our infrastructure program, capital improvements program down the road, whether you're going to do Morgan Meadows or not. but you could do all that without changing rates. And I think if you can keep from changing the rates every year on the residents, and you can quit tweaking them up by 10 cents, 1,000 gallons, they're not going to have as big a problem with that. Now, the other problem, I equally have a problem with the capital improvement program. One of the questions I asked, and I couldn't get an answer for it, was how much of each one of these capital improvement projects, how much money, when did we start putting money away for this project? How much money is there? And if we had to pull some out for Vandenboom or Ontario or whatever, how much did we pull out? So what's the balance? And when are we supposed to arrive at the dollar figure we need? I mean, they show them on the books for 5 and 10 years, but we don't know what year we're in. Are we in year 3, or are we in year 7, or are we starting out at year 1 again because we spent all the money on South Vandenboom and Ontario Street? We should be able
Pretty much
to
do.
know exactly where those accounts are at and where we're at to pull on the trigger to move ahead with that capital improvement project because we have the money saved. And in reality, nobody on this board knows how much money we got there, and for each one of these accounts, where we're at, how close are we to doing them?
We're
We just
not.
keep collecting money.
The 400,000's gone. It went to Vandenboom and Ontario.
And I think we need to rethink how we do account number 891. We need to break that down a little farther, and we can't just keep taking money into that account and having it for 5 capital improvement programs. We need to break it down as to how much money we have in each capital improvement program. And that way, if the board needs, if something comes up and we need to, if another South Vandenboom comes along and we need to pull some money out for something, we know what capital improvement program it's coming out of, and we know exactly what it does to that capital improvement program.
Yep.
We're not just guessing that, I guess we're out of money. We shouldn't be in that situation. So that's what I would like to see for a public works budget, is I would like to see a rate freeze at last year's rates and put a moratorium on the capital improvement programs for this year.
Yep, I think that's what I said. Were you able to do that? Did Randy ask you, or do we have something different?
I think that can be your target for the meeting on the 16th.
Yeah, I can do that. And actually, just a couple of days ago, he gave me a list of items to do for next legislative session from Dave. And I actually provided that. I'm trying to see it here. I don't know if you've seen it. But, obviously, I didn't include 17 because it's not a rate. But the water rate, the bottom rate has only changed in a 10-year period by 1 cent. It's increased by 1 cent.
Because it has gone down a few times,
Right.
but it's gone up higher. It's still higher right now than it's been.
Right, and I understand what you're trying to accomplish here, but if you want, and the questions you're asking are really, the budget work session is a place to do that. The accountant is here. She's the one that tells you how it's gotta be, okay? So, in terms of how much money do we have in that account? When's it gonna be depleted? You know, that's an accountant question.
Who did we
Not
give
her.
that form to then? The one that we added the 2 extra columns, Randy? We had a start date and a balance? Did you give that to Kirk, or did I give it to you?
I'm not sure.
I think I gave it to you.
I
Remember
think-
you made copies
Oh, yeah,
that
it was
night?
in your office.
Yeah.
Yep. We each gave them
Yeah,
copies.
recently, or
Okay.
last year?
No,
it
last
was
week.
last couple of days.
Yeah, remember you went and made copies? And I had written on there year that started, how many years we were into it, or what the balance was.
What you gave me was that, the bill break.
I think it was the 3rd page of that. There were 2 pages, there were 3 pages, and I think it was the 3rd page was the one that you had written some columns on.
So, but that's the
Got it,
lowest
certainly
thing?
take a look at it.
She has to calculate that, not Kirk?
She has more budget detail than what Kirk's budget has. She has the actual accountant, information by project and what's been put in and not. And maybe that's something you should be getting as well. But what I'm hearing you say is for your budget work session on the 16th, you want to see, as Dave just suggested, a budget that freezes the rate, no capital improvements, and identifying what the surplus would be.
We're working
If
on
those,
water.
if those
Please.
things occur.
To start.
I think you could apply that across the board.
I think so too, but I didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah, I could do that, but to accomplish what you're looking for, I think you're gonna have to at least leave the numbers. I can see not doing capital.
No contribution. Well, yeah, you would be no
But
contribution.
don't-
You'd have the same, you'd have the
That's what I'm
numbers.
talking about. We need to refund these.
Yeah, you'd have the capital improvement numbers in there, but nothing being allocated this
Right.
year.
I'm saying any
Don't take the
surplus
money
we
out.
have left over that would normally have gone into the capital improvement go someplace else, so we don't make the mistake of thinking that's for something other than a contingency fund.
Yeah, I
Right.
think we still need to call it capital improvement. Number one, is that's what I'm required to do. We've got to have a capital improvement.
Well, I think they're saying eliminate capital improvements. What they're saying is keep the capital improvements in there, but do not make an allocation to capital improvements for this budget year.
Yeah, that's-
But,
Just for
but
this
if you
year.
do that, the way I understand it, I don't think it's that difficult, is when you do that, you're gonna come up with a surplus.
Correct.
And you have to put that surplus someplace. I'm saying that it should not go into the capital improvement funds to be taken out later. It should go someplace else, and this board should have the luxury of taking the first half of next year and deciding where we want to spend that money and what debts we want to pay down if that's the direction the board wants to go.
Well, that is what you would get. You would get, you know, you would get a budget basically doing those two things and then indicating that here's the surplus that's generated as a fixed number that the board then in your budget work sessions decide what you do with.
But you can't put it into revenues to keep the rate down.
No, you're talking about reducing other
We have to keep that
projects.
$167,000 somewhere separate that we can identify it.
What account can you put that in?
That's what I was just gonna look and see.
Or do you need to make one up?
Because he's got stuff in
It's
the.
just identified separately.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think you need to physically move it. I mean, it can still be that same
Designated to that.
activity. But you can decide, okay, we don't want to spend it here. We want to
The,
spend
the problem I have with leaving it in capital improvements is there's nobody here knows what's in capital improvements. We don't know what account's got what, how much money, and we don't know how long we don't know any of that.
At this
Well,
point,
again, that's,
I don't think it matters because there's no money there
when you
for
talk
it.
about
Yeah.
accounting.
It matters to me.
not right now. At some point it will, when we figure out what we're gonna do.
I mean, the capital improvement plan has already been approved by the board.
Well, and that's what we keep coming back to, and that's what we keep hearing, is that we've got this money here now, and the capital improvement plan's already been approved, therefore, and it shouldn't be an ergo, it should be just that that money isn't there. If the board decides that they don't want to fund capital improvement, then they should just show $0 going into those funds this year, and that money, any surplus, should be going someplace else. We should not be funding something that we know full well we're not going to do.
So if you do a mock budget that takes that 100, I think it's 167, I keep throwing that number out.
Well,
Just,
and that number may change when you take and do no rate increase.
that's what I'm saying, just take it out with no rate increase and see what impact that is. And you can't change revenues, sales. You gotta figure out where it's gonna come from.
Well, your sales are gonna be less because you're gonna be basing it on a lower number.
165,950.
Not creating, like you just said, okay, we're not creating additional revenues. We're just taking off expenses. Or reallocating expenses, we'll put it that way.
Well, your revenues are gonna be different too. If you're basing the revenues on the fixed number of gallons that you predicted you were gonna sell at $9, and you're now gonna be doing it at $8.66, there's gonna be less revenue.
Less revenue, yeah, but I didn't want him to put the 165
Yeah.
in the revenues and say,
Right.
okay, here's no rate increase. John?
Just at a point, I think what's being decided is good. But I'd like to add to it, if it's at all possible, issues and projects should have some deciding priorities by this board too. That would be helpful. When you do have any extra money, or you do have money that gets moved around, and you have somewhere to put it, it would be nice to know that we've already decided on those issues and those projects have these priorities. It doesn't have to be fixed, but it needs to be talked about by the board.
Well, and that's
Early
the-
on.
That's the cap when they were supposed to be labeled as emergency and all the way down to nice have and a wish list. Those are all supposed to be qualified under those, or categorized under those headings, and so that we can put a little more evaluation on what you want to spend your money on. But do we have those that way?
The main
No.
thing I got out of the work session was the board was gonna give Randy and me a date for the number one priority that you have already established as being Mason's Bluff and Murray Meadows, so that we can work towards that goal.
That's the second part of
That's
this,
it,
too.
yeah, that was a separate
is-
one.
Yeah, actual
Well, your
future
first part's gonna
project.
impact the second part, I can tell you
Right.
right now, so.
I would say, I don't know, I don't think he could put that together in a couple of weeks.
What's that?
To try to forecast, the Morgan Meadows going back, we were talking about that, but I didn't expect that now.
I don't know how until we get through the budget thing.
Yeah, to get through this first.
Work on that.
Next year.
Mhm.
But I think he's right.
Tell me what I heard.
You do need a date, if you want to move ahead with that. You need a date for when that would be complete, and then let staff work out what has to happen and when it has to happen in order for that to be accomplished.
Right, now, this discussion has come
Prices on
up,
it.
this discussion has begun after that.
Yeah.
So it's modifying that prior request.
Yeah, and I think the only thing the board needs to do to make that happen is just put a date on it.
Well, and Kirk is right, this year's budget is gonna reflect that. So that other discussion probably should be had probably early in
Afterwards.
January when this budget is done.
I agree.
Yep. Okay, so, did you have your hand up?
Going with a flat rate increase, or what it is, we have to also take in consideration where we're going to get the additional dollars for wage increases and hospitalization, how that's all going to work through in that, too.
Well, the hospitalization is in it.
Pardon?
Hospitalization's already in there. I've got 12%, which isn't, we now know is not going to be enough for the hospitalization.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Once you decide that there's not going to be any rate increases this year, then all those numbers go downhill, and you're not going to come up with $165,000. It's going to be something less than that.
Right.
But it'll be something. Because if
Maybe.
Yeah, expenses.
your revenue's going to go
Go.
down because you're not changing the rates, so you're going to have less revenue for the same gallons you forecast. Some of the expenses are going to go up. You're going to have to take some of that. Less revenue is going to have to reflect in a less of a
Surplus.
contingency fund, because there's not going to be enough money at the end because you didn't bring
Right.
as much in.
Well, we've got 55,000 in contingency right now.
Maybe contingency was a bad word, but I hate to use the other one, which is slush fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will adjust. Expenses are going to remain relatively stable. Expenses aren't going to change a tremendous amount. It's going to be the revenue that's going
Yep,
to
but if
change,
we-
which
if
is
we
going to
freeze the
reallocate.
rates, revenue's going to go down.
Yep, and that'll reallocate some of the other line items, but some of the fixed expenses won't change.
So if I understand you correctly, whatever number, freeze the rates, see what happens with the budget. With the decrease, you want to come out of,
Capital improvements.
capital improvement.
Dave,
It's going to have to. They come out of the surplus.
That's all you can
What I'm
do.
suggesting is capital improvement across the board goes to zero
Right.
for contributions for this year. And we find some other place to show that surplus other than capital improvements.
you show
So-
it by paying off some of the debt.
Yeah,
That's
but we
your
haven't-
53,000 you can play with.
But we haven't made that decision
We
yet
haven't
because we
discussed
don't
that.
truly know how much
Well, you can't
surplus
do
we have.
both.
In essence, what's going to occur is, first, you're going to return to the current fixed rate per gallon. That's going to reduce the revenue. Then you're going to eliminate the expense for capital improvement, which is going to come back into his fund. At the end, you're going to end up with a surplus. And whatever that surplus is, then the board is going to reallocate to whatever you wish to do with it, whether it's to pay off some of the other debt or whatever, but that's going to give you your surplus number.
No, I think you're doing that backwards. If you have, and I just guessed at 53,000 because I didn't add up all the interest and I don't know what the payoff's gonna be. There's $207,000 worth of debt in the next 3 years, including all the interest,
Right.
okay? If we pay all of that off, we've already budgeted 154,000 of that. That's in the budget right now to pay those debt payments, okay? If we pay all those, it's
1
gonna
year's
be
worth.
less interest right off the bat, and we take some of the contingency and pay off the next
No,
3
that's
accounts.
what I said, out of the surplus.
Right.
Yeah, it's up to you. When you get that
Then-
surplus number, you decide how it's going to be
Where it's gonna go.
allocated.
No, you do them first.
You can't do them first because you don't know what your surplus is. You have to, if you're reducing the rates to what the rate is, the current rate, your revenue is going to go down. You pull back in all of the planned capital improvements, you pull that back in, that gives you what your surplus is to reallocate back to what you're talking about on those expenditures. How are you going to apply that surplus?
No. No, because you've already got 154,000 allocated
That's
to
still
pay
there.
this year.
But that's still
All you
there.
have to cover is 1, 2, 3 more payments, 30, 50,000, $53,000. You take that out
But
of
Kirk's not going to do
capital.
that.
You
Kirk,
take that out of capital. He can work the budget to
no,
show
you're
that.
taking the capital back to zero. Right? That was what the direction was. Capital is zero this year. So that money that's currently in the budget for capital now comes back into his contingency or whatever you want to call it. It reduces the rate from what was recommended to the current rate. That's going to change a number of other things in the budget, which will then result in a surplus that is not allocated anywhere. That's the money you have then to work with for the board to decide which of those items you're going to go back in and pay off.
Okay.
Because Kirk can't make that decision for you.
No, I know he can't, but he could present that as a budget recommendation. It's the same thing. It's gonna leave us more money, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, Randy?
To move the meeting along, I believe we've directed Kirk to create a budget with no rate increases, I believe, in water and wastewater, and see where that goes. And I don't think it's the appropriate time here to throw out figures, because that's for the budget work session. We've directed staff to do that. They'll present it at the next budget session, and we got 3 others scheduled beyond that. So hopefully we'll finalize it. I just don't think we should be throwing figures out here, because this isn't the appropriate place to do it. We just direct staff to do it here as policy, and we move forward. We don't throw figures out here.
But the motion is, there's 2 parts to the motion that you're talking about. One is no rate increase, and the other is no allocation to capital.
That's the direction, correct.
We had a motion?
We
You
did
made
not.
the motion?
I will make a motion, we do that.
I'll support it.
Any more questions?
It will be interesting to see.
Yeah. Don't go over this budget in the computer, do a second one, so this one stands, just in case we change our mind. Just do a budget 2.
Not if, when.
We never
Not
do that.
if, when.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
All right.
It really doesn't cover the future water projects discussion, but until the budget's,
It does sorta, because future water projects were capital improvements.
yeah, that's
So
true.
it does sorta
But I was
cover
thinking
that.
more along the Mason's Bluff, and that's gonna have to come later.
That discussion will come probably next year.
All right. We didn't pull any items out of the agenda. Public is gone. Any announcements? Managers report.
Just a couple of items. You do have the printed report, Supervisor Durant and I met with the Semco folks along with Planner McCarthy and with Attorney Zappa. They have accepted our counter proposal for the routing, which would move it south to the currently existing snowmobile trail at the far south of our property, which was one of the options that we had proposed. So that is where they're going. So that was good news. There would not be an new easement across our property. The Catch Division Christmas tree lighting, as stated here, will be it's right now set for November 28th in the Westwood Mall parking lot between Applebee's and Aspen Dental Clinic. It'll be very similar to prior years. There'll be seasonal music, a variety of activities going on. Santa should arrive about 6:30. The festivities will start about 6 o'clock. Pete LaRue is guaranteeing that we'll have warm weather.
Yeah.
I think you were going to pray for that, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, okay.
Light a candle.
So, that's coming up, and it's going to be a great time, be a fun time. We have quite a few new activities that we're talking about inside the mall. After Santa Claus arrives and moves into the mall, there'll be some other activities for folks. We've had some fairly long lines prior years, so there'll be some other activities for them to partake in while the lines are whittling down and moving along. So I think it'll be a great lot of fun. Holidays that are coming up, so folks can mark on their calendars. The Township Community Center will be closed. Thanksgiving Day, Thursday, the November 23rd, and Friday, November 24th. Christmas, Monday, December 25th, and Tuesday, December 26th, we will not be open. And in recognition of New Year's Day, Monday, January 1st, we will not be open. However, if you have any needs that come up, we do have on-call staff. You'd simply call the standard office number 228-6220 and follow the prompts to get the call-out staff. Have any issue with water, sewer, or anything along those lines. So those are covered. The budget, we've talked about that a number of times. I really don't have anything more to add than what's in the report. We have to have the public hearing not later than Friday, December 15th. That has to be noticed at least 7 days in advance, and it takes about 4 days to get that notice in the paper, so I'm targeting December 1st to have that notice placed in the Mining Journal. And we have to adopt the budget by December 31st, so you can, after the public hearing, you have 2 weeks, roughly, to finally adopt the budget before the 31st. That's all that I had.
Any questions? Go ahead.
No questions. I was just going to add to the balance of the reports.
Good. Go ahead.
The Planning Commission hasn't met since our last meeting. Their next meeting is going to be December 13th. Is the next time they're going to get together. The Road Committee did meet just prior to this meeting, and we are getting ready to remove the road rehabilitation project off the agenda as it is done. We have one issue that we're working with a resident, and that should be done
Friday.
And other than that, there's some street signs that have not been replaced yet, or at least I haven't confirmed that they replaced them.
Yeah, there's 3 that I know of that are not back up yet.
The UPEA has been advised of that, so it just remains to be seen what they do with it, but that's going to end the road rehab project. Jason is working on the road transportation facilities plan, and as well as the asset management plan with Isaac. And those should be ready for some action by the Planning Commission and the board by the first part of the year. And that's about it. We do have the drainage district discussion on new business, but we're waiting for some direction from the Planning Commission.
Pete?
You and Randy both in your reports talked about Semco Energy Pipeline. I'd like to see a little more about that next time when you do something like that, so we know where the lines are going to go.
Yeah, I was thinking I had the map.
Because it's pretty sketchy here as far as that, And I think the board members would like to know about that.
I can send that out to you by email.
All right, thank you.
I'll send it out to the board member, the sketch that they gave to us.
Okay.
Anything else? John?
Road rehabilitation project ending, job well done.
Here, here.
We should probably have done some kind of ribbon cutting or something. you
Yeah,
know.
it just matter which road you're gonna cut the ribbon on, huh?
Yeah.
Not in
Whichever
granite.
one Maybe cost the most or something.
Or
That'd be South Van and Boom.
Yeah.
And where do we stand on the vacancy in the planning commission right now?
That's a good question. Randy, did you email your guy?
I did.
Okay. He's the one that
Not a response
we haven't
back
heard
yet.
from. There
Who's
was
that?
one fellow that had questioned Randy, or they ran into each other. They had talked about it before, and we were trying to get a hold of him to see if he was still interested. David brought up, what are we doing with the ones who had previously requested, had filled out the forms? They're in the book in the office. I went through all of those when I filled the last position, and most of them didn't contact me back. They didn't respond at all when I told them that I was trying to see if they were still interested. I can go through them again. Glenn was supposed to be here tonight, so I believe he's out of town now, and he wasn't going to, not Glenn,
Greg?
Greg, thank you. Because he wanted to come and visit. You saw his application, he's got quite a background as far as making him qualified. Like Dave said, the planning's not meeting again till December 13th or 15th or whatever, so I'd like to have somebody seated then, but it's a recommendation from me. I haven't made it yet because I want to make sure I'm not leaving somebody out if they're interested, but this gentleman checked with us last year, so I just want to, he's first, basically. Make sure, if there's anybody that you've talked to that's interested, have them
Well,
fill out a
I mean,
form.
again, it was last year when Greg did ask me, and there were no openings, so I
Right.
don't think he formally put in an application or anything
He
until
did,
this year.
yeah.
Last year?
You haven't, no, not last year, no.
Right, last year,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he did email me last week and said, is there anything else you need from me? And I said, well, if you could make it to a meeting and visit with us, the board might have questions. And he was going to try, but
Okay.
we'll see.
Lynn, do we do anything for people who served on them when they leave? Do we do anything about that?
Usually, yeah.
What do you do?
Oh, we give them a plaque and have them come to the meeting and thank them and take
Okay.
pictures. And I'm not sure that the person leaving would be able to do that. He might.
I just, as far as procedure and that, what we
Yeah.
do when somebody leaves who's been serving and that.
Usually it's long time, too, that they've served. I don't know that we've done anything for anybody who's just been like a year.
This is our property here.
Usually the longevity ones.
Do, they cut down.
Anything else? Anything else you want to see on future agendas? That isn't just Randy and me. So if there's things that we need to
Okay.
talk about.
Well, we gotta review the motions
Right.
first.
Yeah, but that's part of,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead because I was making notes. Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
Okay, we had 6 motions tonight and no action items, but the 6 motions were: consent agenda was as presented, regular agenda as presented. We, third motion was to send letters to Huron, Nord, and Center Street, and the letter in the form, complaint form, so we can gather data for future action, possibly. Fourth motion was to set 4 budget session dates, 16th, 17th, 20th, and 21st of November from 3 to 5. The fifth motion was to have a preliminary level of service for the water. And sixth motion was to have a no increase water and wastewater budget for the next budget, for the budget work sessions, have it presented to us. So, and those are the 6 motions that are been approved this evening.
Then future agendas.
I would say committee appointments for December, because that's when we always have to deal with it. Committee
Yeah.
appointments, and that'll be part of the planning
Better
commission.
do it the second meeting then.
Committee appointments, well, we can set it whatever, but that's for December.
I did start looking at that, and Andrea had pulled the form, and Randy said that she didn't use the right form, so it might be, we'll have to kind of start over.
Committee appointments, I don't have anything else other than that, unless any other board member has any thoughts for December agenda items.
Okay, then board member comment? Anything anybody wants to share? Randy?
Okay, we had the election yesterday, special election. Everything went well. We had about a 38% between both precincts turnout, which is almost half. It wasn't like overly busy, but it wasn't dead either. It was just a steady stream of folks coming in. So we had there was really no down times, I would say. It was always someone coming in. So, and I did see a lot of folks that I've never seen before voting, so that's good also. So I'm thinking that the ease of voting that we've, with 2 precincts and the absentee voting has encouraged more people to vote, I would hope. So I think that's good. And like I said, and I got it just before the meeting this evening, the county clerk emailed me, the Board of Canvassers made the results official, and everyone did a good job with the election. There was no problem. So that's a carrot to us clerks out in the county. So
How many voted, or what percent, or?
I don't know for the county, Pete, but for us, we had
That's what I mean.
we had 38% of our people vote.
Good.
So I think that's
Be better.
that's a good number for a special election on an odd year.
Just,
Very limited.
Yes, John?
just as an observation, I can tell you that both precincts moved very smoothly through. And I think that it's a credit to our clerk. People moved in and out of the voting area in about 5 minutes. And I think that that's a big help as well. But it was without problem, and people moved smoothly through the voting places.
We're good? I just need another motion? Oh, Ernie, sorry.
I speak a little bit, not much tonight, I'm listening. About a month ago, I sent out letters for the delinquent personal property taxes for the businesses. We got 3 payments so far, that's all. And we had a date of the end of the year, that the next step after the end of the year is I meet with our friendly attorney, and then the letter goes out. So, and if nothing happens then, I have the authority to go in and close them down, which I do not want to do, but some of them are quite a bit of dollars, some of them are just a few dollars, and so it's one of those situations that the treasurer, I don't like, but it's something they have to do, and that too. But when you look at the dollars that we spend to get it done, and I take in $50 and I keep $3, and the rest of it goes to all the other entities. But yeah, we have to spend all the dollars to collect it, which is, I don't care for it, but that's statute. We have to do it in that too, so.
So
But
3
before
out
you
of-
do anything,
out
don't
of
you
how
have to
many?
send letters?
We had 6
Oh,
at the time, which isn't that's real good, very good in that for us and that too, so.
But don't you have to send a letter before you go to?
Oh, yeah, the letters have all gone and that, and certified and returned and that, and so we know what's going on. And we gave them till the end of the year to hopefully pay and that too, so. There's one that if we don't pay, I'm gonna be talking to our manager about the one of them and that too, so.
Good. Okay,
Move to adjourn.
Approved.
motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 8:54.